In 1864, a shrewd politician from a Lee royal family succeeded in making his second son as the king of Joseon, Gojong. His name was Lee Ha-eung and his nickname was Heungseon. And his son, when he took the reign of Joseon, was only 12 years old. So he became a regent, and he was called Regent Heungseon. As soon as he got the power, he made sure ending the 60-year rule of Kim's that was extremely corrupted. He not only stopped the all illegal taxations, but also he brought back all the fair rules that was instituted since the beginning of the dynasty. People's lives got better with his reform, but it was not enough to defend Korea against the foreign invasion. When Heungseon started the reform in Korea, that was mid-19th century, the Western countries started to move the power from the king to the people and industrialization. Even in Qing dynasty, there was a self-strengthening movement, a sort of partial modernization. And in Japan, they already began Meiji reform. They were trying to make Japan just like Western nations. 2 years later, Heungseon arranged the marriage of Gojong with Queen Min, who was from very poor Yangban family who did not have any brothers and sisters, thinking that she could not bring her relatives to the politics that can be corrupted badly like before. But things didn't go well as Heungseon expected. Queen Min and her adopted brothers corrupted much more than Kim's 60 years. And power struggle between Heungseon and Queen Min went on until Queen Min got killed toward the end of the dynasty. Even though there was strong demand from foreign nations to make a trade treaty with Joseon, Heungseon didn't want it because at the time Joseon's national strength is not good enough to defend against foreign invasion. In fact, there were 2 attempts to make a treaty with Joseon, one by France, one by America, and Heungseon were able to stop them successfully. In 1873, Heungseon had to relinquish his power to Gojong, who became 20 years old. Heungseon created many political enemies against him because the Confucius scholars who had the power for 60 years were very corrupted, and he had to get rid of them. The opportunistic Queen Min took those groups for her and staged a sort of coup against Heungseon and placed her husband in power, Gojong. In the meantime, Japan was changing rapidly through Meiji reform and becoming a modern nation. For 10 years, when Heungseon was in power, Japan asked him to open up the country through trade agreement, but Heungseon refused it adamantly. Politicians in Japan divided in two groups. One group wanted to invade Joseon and conquer Joseon by force. The other group thought Japan is not ready for it. So now Japan had to start to engage in Joseon peacefully first. Japan began the process by contacting Qing dynasty first. At the time, Qing and Joseon formed a sort of suzerain and tributary relationships. In other words, Joseon was dependent on Qing dynasty. At the time, Qing was in a bad shape because many Western countries came to them and asked them to make a trade agreement by force. And as a result, Qing gave pieces of their land to them, and also the tributary countries such as Vietnam was taken by the Western countries. So they are not in a condition that they can start a war against Japan. Joseon was the last tributary country of Qing dynasty. Yi Hongzhang was in charge of the diplomacy of Qing dynasty. He thought the best way to keep Joseon under their influence is let Joseon to make many trade agreements with Western nations. So these countries can look over each other's shoulder all the time. Japan was one of them. As Japan approached Qing dynasty to get a permission to make a trade agreement with Joseon, Qing allowed them to make a trade agreement under the condition that Japan would not use the force. Japan brought Navy ships to Busan and Incheon, and they fired cannons and they landed into Busan and demonstrated their superior power by marching in the street. It was just like Matthew Perry's Black Ship incident in 1853. In 1877, Joseon signed a trade agreement with Japan. It was the first trade agreement made with foreign countries. And it was the first, basically, the diplomatic agreement that Joseon signed on. Before this, they never had any diplomatic relations with other nations besides Qing dynasty. They didn't have any knowledge about trade agreement, and it was the awfully unequal trade agreement. For example, Japan could bring their products to Joseon without any taxes. Joseon did not know they have to apply taxes on the merchandise coming from foreign countries. Japanese learned the tactics very quickly from America. They had to sign the unequal treaty by force that Matthew Perry applied to them. And they used the same tactics. to Joseon, and Joseon had to open up to Japan. And this is the start of Japanese invasion to Korea. And this is the end of chapter 8.